Why do we need a minimum wage? Why not let employees' salaries float on the open market, just like we do, say, for this computer or for this pen? Why not, if an employer is so good, should that employer not pay an employee 17 cents an hour or $1 a day? Why do we not? Why does that offend us? Because I would submit that even the most aggressive open marketers, free marketers, would say that 17 cents an hour violates a basic moral premise. I think that there's a difference. And the difference is that in America, there is a basic sense that if you go to work, that if you play by the rules, that if you work hard, you got enough money to take care of your family. It's a basic underlying essence of what America is about. What differentiates us from so many other nation states around the world. And so what are those numbers? I look at the MIT calculator as well, which is a much more conservative calculator than the Center for California Budget Project. But if you look in my county just a few years ago, that wage, what does it cost to live? What are the basics? Not to go to private school or to have fancy stuff. What does it cost for food, for health care, for housing and utilities, transportation? It's basically $11.33 an hour. Not much difference than the $10.98 an hour that was referred to with respect to another part of the state. If you look as what was expressed in the amendments here, the amount of the wages go up in January 2018 to $11 an hour. Now, that doesn't include the subsidies for CalFresh, the SNAP program, Covered California, EITC, housing subsidies, and the other kinds of things that taxpayers have to pay because we as a society say there's a basic moral standard by which folks should live. That is the question. Now, what we've seen in times of election and every time when this minimum wage was created, we have seen rhetoric, example after example, of the story of the sky is falling. Well, what does the data show? What do the facts show when you step back without regard to party, without regard to points of view, just what do the numbers show? And when you look at the economists that have looked at this throughout the years, what does it show? Well, in 1938, we created in the United States, the Fair Labor Standards Act, and it implemented a 25-cent an hour wage. At the time, the National Association of Manufacturers said that the Fair Labor Standards Act constitutes a step in the direction of communism, Bolshevism, fascism, and Nazism. There were no economic downturns in 1938 at the time. In 1950, No, at the time, as a consequence, by virtue of what the experts look at with respect to that wage. In 1950, the wage went from 40 cents to 75 cents. Unemployment declined from 6.5% in 1950 to a low of 3% in 1951. Again, March 1st, 1956. Wages went from 75 cents, the minimum wage, from 75 cents to $1. Again, the month that this measure was enacted, unemployment rates went from 4.2%, a year later, 3.7%. Example after example. In the mid-'70s, we certainly had the energy crisis, and there were some other economic determinations. And in 1980, in the heat of campaigns, which always happens in the heat of campaigns, Ronald Reagan, who was the governor of this state, who did a lot of great things. I am not someone who will just simply throw someone out because they're of a different party. He is the gentleman who wrote a lot of the environmental laws and did a lot of other things in California that I think were important. But he said in Time magazine in the heat of that campaign, the minimum wage has caused more misery and unemployment than anything since the Great Depression. Yet wages went up from $3.10 to $3.35 an hour at the time, and there were no discernible impacts by virtue of looking at all the various reports. All I'm trying to tell you is let's just differentiate the rhetoric from the economic circumstances. Let's marry that with the underlying core values of who we are and what differentiates us, what makes America great. by playing by the rules and being able to provide for your family. And I'm not going to take the time, but I took a lot of time personally and went through the various studies and looked at what economists talked of channels for adjustment in the event that you have these wage increase changes. They looked at reduction in hours worked, reduction in non-wage benefits, reduction, expenditures on job training, fewer young people, higher prices that are being charged. Well, I looked at the studies for fast food restaurants and what the impacts were and what they actually did in terms of improving efficiencies. The bottom line of it all is that if you look at productivity of the U.S. worker, they grew by 72.2% between 1973 and 2014. Americans are working harder. So if you just take the pure economic analysis and say, well, what value do you get? What's the value of this pen? What's the value of this computer? Well, the value of the working folks that are producing for America has been increasing dramatically. I'm not going to go to the numbers to which we referred earlier as to what their compensation has been, but the bottom line is that their productivity has increased. And so the notion that this argument about the minimum wage, will there be impacts? Of course. Is this a perfect bill? No. Are there weaknesses and challenges? Yes. Do the restaurateurs make some points with respect to the front of the house and the back of the house? Absolutely. Are there issues with respect to social services and child care and issues that need to be taken care of with respect to this measure? Absolutely. Is there a safety valve that, in my judgment, that's a good safety valve, gives a little bit too much power to the executive branch and the Department of Finance? Absolutely. But the bottom line is this. What if we did nothing? What if we did nothing? What is the cost of providing services to folks? What is the impact of giving more money to people and making this transition? The truth of the matter is that we have been here before, that we have heard the same arguments before, time and time again. That the reality is that this is a tension that dominates these legislative bodies at the national level and across all jurisdictions. And it is always the fight. It is always the fight. But at the end of the day, it is about that moral component. It is about what is this country about. It is that when you are students of history and look at what the history of the human political order has been, it has been, and the greatness of this country is creating a middle class. Folks that make a couple bucks an hour aren't investing in tax straddles in the Bahamas. They're buying an extra pair of shoes for their kids. They're maybe putting a couple bucks away to be able to pay for school or to fix their house or whatever the case may be. It is the cornerstone and backbone of America. It is the most, there's no offshoring of this money. There's no money in some offshore account that we have to repatriate somewhere. This is the stuff that you make America about. You know, they're buying all the products. They're doing the stuff. It doesn't work. Otherwise, you get monopoly where somebody wins the game and the game's over and everybody goes bankrupt. It doesn't work that way. So yes, is there a tension? Yes. Yes, is it difficult at times? Yes. But the truth of the matter is this has been a struggle that we have always dealt with. And the failure to deal with it in any constructive way, we're going to have to make changes and corrections down the line always. That's what we're here for as a legislative branch of government. But I just share with everybody, because I hear these discussions, I hear the fear, I hear the noise, but the truth and the facts don't bear out. It is challenging. It is that point of tension. But I would suggest that we are not talking about a minimum wage. We are talking about a family wage. We talk about values here on both sides of the aisle of what we believe in. If you can't, at the core, make a living and look at your spouse in your eye or your kids and come home and do work and not have to take subsistence because you don't want to do it, because you want to do it the right way, and you can't do it, aren't we contradictory? Aren't we creating that level of a problem? So if there is some level of attention, so be it. That's the nature of the capitalist system. I would just say that at the end of the day, although not perfect, this is the right thing to do. It stands for the right moral principles and does it the right way. I ask for concurrence in this measure. Thank you so much.